Hello again, everyone. Edwin Leonard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be dissertating and talking about why the world, why we need the sign Gemini. And yes, I'm talking about the sun, moon, and ascendant, and it pertains to those three. So anyway, well, I think the first thing I think of when I think of Gemini is I think of their liveliness, the fact they're very vivacious. And I think because they're so animated that they can enliven even the most drab or group of people or really maybe change something up that's very monotonous. Even if it's something at work, they can somehow maybe make things somehow more interesting. Just their manner and their general, I guess you could say that they have this way about them that really just that general amiable side of Gemini, their lightheartedness, and it is really amazing. And they could really bring somebody, even the most melancholy person, out of the doldrums. I think they're similar to Sagittarius that way, and it's just their whimsical quality. Gemini is a masculine sign, so it is extroverted and it's optimistic and it's upbeat, and Gemini can be very sociable. The fact is that Gemini is never boring because Gemini disdains monotony. And really, that's why I think they're able to attract a lot of people to them. Their popularity can be immense. I've known a number of people that had Gemini prominently in their chart, and they seem to bring people to them like magnets. Now, many of you may know that my moon is in Gemini, but I don't really bring, I will say the one thing that doesn't fit me, a lot of the other Gemini attributes fit me, but I don't seem to bring a lot of people to me. A lot of that's attributed to other elements in my horoscope, which I don't want to obviously go on a 2-hour dissertation, talk about. Many of you may know about that have followed my videos, why that would be. But what I want to say, though, is there's another thing I thought was interesting, too, about Gemini, is that I don't know how many of you have read this book. It was a book that's entitled The Rising Sign, and it was written by Jean Avery. It's very profound, and it has a very insightful regarding the rising sign or ascendant. And when she talked about Gemini rising, I don't remember if this is the exact quote or pretty close to it. It said, meaning he being universal, he can he can revitalize words that would remain meaningless otherwise. So you look at some people like many of you may have heard of renowned singer John Denver, who died in a plane crash. He had Gemini rising, and through his music, he was able to, I think he did revitalize some words that might have remained meaningless otherwise. I thought that was very eloquently put, and I thought he's a very good example of that. And Gemini people also can make very strong, prodigious contributions to things that are scientific. Look at Neil Armstrong, who passed away, I believe it was about 4 years ago. I think it was 2012. He was apparently the first person to land on the moon, and he had Gemini rising, and I think he was like an engineer in aeronautics or something. So Gemini people, obviously because they're very cerebral, they can make very good contributions to science as long as they use some persistence in them and follow up. A lot of times Geminis will maybe talk about a concept or an idea, but because of their restlessness and occasional lack of persistence, they don't always make it come to fruition. But their ideas can really be well ahead of their own time in many cases, and especially in, I think, a case with if someone has Gemini ascendant in Aquarius on the MC, I think is really, that's where that could figure prominently, especially. But really, the thing about Geminis too is they also, because of they could be very verbose and have strong literary ability. They make so many contributions to things that are written to the literary world. So as far as back to the science thing, without Gemini, I think we have a lot less um, contributions scientifically, but we also have a lot less things that literary achievements. If I'm not mistaken, Jack London, who was a writer, had Gemini ascendant, and he was a very prolific and profound writer. So I think when you look at that, you look at these things with the literary ability, the ability to be scientific, and really being able to enliven groups that can really, that could be somewhat boring or drab and are too constant in their way. They have a way, I think, to change, to diversify and change things up, and not do it, and not do it in a way where they're overbearing. As a manager, I see Gemini being very good managers because of their very rather easygoing nature, that they could really give the instructions and come out in a way where it's not domineering, and they could really make a group maybe work better because of their cerebral ability, and by being able to recognize the best attributes in each person due to their intellect and what they're able to see by their quick perceptions of others. So I think that is important to remember. And also, Gemini can be very multifaceted and versatile, and they could do more things in one time, it seems like, than the average person can do. And I think as far as multitasking, you have Gemini can be very adept at that. They could be good workers because of this ability and being adaptable to do multiple things and to be somewhat versatile. I worked as a store porter one time, and someone told me, and he, ironically enough, his son was in Gemini, and he told me, you're going to be somewhat versatile at this job. And I'm thinking, you don't, it's not really versatile. I think the appropriate word was more ubiquitous, but I think Gemini can be that as well. But anyway, people, well, last but not least, I wanted to say one thing to a friend of mine from YouTube and Facebook, and name is, well, she goes by on YouTube. She has Vera, I think Vera747, and or another name is Vera Veris. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. She has Gemini Rising, and I wanted to say also that the world would be less interesting and less enjoyable if she wasn't there. So I think that's a good example. The fact that she has Gemini Rising, she makes the world a better place. And anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment for why the world needs Geminis. And two things I want to get with you on before I head out. Firstly, the stars may impel but do not compel. And secondly, never isolate any single astrological element, aspect, planetary placement, position, configuration, influence, or what have you, and make an analysis of a person, astrologically speaking, based on this alone. Because astrologically speaking, the person is the sum of all their components in their natal chart, and not just one. Until next time, people, stay well.